Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining RPA and Intelligent Automation Live today. I would like to move on to introduce our very first speaker today. Donald Cook, he's the President and CEO of Enterprise Automation and Transformation. His topic will be on Enterprise Automation and Transformation, AI, Machine Learning, RPA, RFID, and OPEX for rapid business recovery and turnaround. It's a real pleasure for me to introduce Donald Cook to all of you. Donald is a multiple industry award-winning rapid enterprise turnaround and recovery and global enterprise transformation officer for the world's largest pharmaceutical companies, the largest pediatric medical practice in North America, BNY Mellon Bank, AIG, Computer Associates, JP Morgan Chase Bank, and General Electric. He was named the Enterprise Whisperer by Fortune magazine. Don has been busy this year chairing events globally for the World Health Organization, the 50th anniversary of the Davos Economic Forum, and for artificial intelligence events in healthcare and health sciences in Paris, Amsterdam, Berlin, and in London at Oxford University. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Donald Cook.
Thank you so much, Jose. Thank you very much. I want to share what a great honor it is this morning to be with all of you, to be able to share my experience in leading enterprise transformation, and to be able to share what I think is going to be the future of the industry and where we are heading with automation in every field. What I'm sharing today is a byproduct of my experience across all industries. So I'm sharing a broad background of experience, and I'd like to start today by talking about where I think we are as an organization, as a global population. There we go. In brief introduction, I am Donald Cook. My LinkedIn profile is highly visible. It's easy for all of you to join. Please feel free to link in with me and ask me direct questions after the session. I'm happy to help your companies in any way that I can. I think we can always learn from today where we need to be tomorrow. We need to be much better prepared for the future. Many of our companies had no resilience planning, had little or no virtualization capability, inadequate security in order to be able to virtualize our businesses. And we have to recognize that tomorrow is going to bring even greater challenges. So whatever we have confronted in the last 90 days, expect it again in our lifetime. While we hear that it's a once in a lifetime experience, I wouldn't count on it. I suspect that this will be the new normal, and that the people that have been virtualized by the pandemic of COVID will likely not want to return to their desks and work from the office. So many of our employees are going to want to be virtual in the future. As a result, we're going to have to look at perhaps restaffing and restructuring the way our companies work, and perhaps even re-engineering them based on changed demand and the appropriate capacity that results. So going forward, our resilience and crisis planning has to include documenting all of our business processes down to the individual site and process level, documenting our technology, our controls, and our API architecture so that we have a coherent enterprise architecture that links process, technology, controls, and APIs. We have to develop standardized taxonomies. We've been on a number of virtual phone conversations and meetings where people are using the same words and mean things that are completely different because we're dealing now with a global community in a virtual context. And we lose some of the intimacy of sitting side by side at the meeting table and being able to chuckle and joke about the fact that we really don't understand each other when we use the same words. For those expressions that are critical to our business success, we have to document a taxonomy so that everyone uses a standard set of words in a standardized way and we can communicate more effectively in this new virtual community. We have to cross-train our staff and build a matrix of skills and of certified capabilities so we know who can sit in what chair in the event of a crisis. We need to know which skills are fungible and reusable so that we can use our staff in a more effective way. And we have to create a redundant rollover capability with multiple locations that may be located away from the epicenter of where these crises occur. All of us are observing how difficult life has been in New York City. New York City has become the epicenter for this global crisis and for the infection rate of COVID. It's also the world's headquarters and the World Financial Center for many of the world's banks. And I can say with great pride that because of the planning and preparation that I did at BNY Mellon as the chief architect, we moved a redundant rollover site up into upstate New York in Oriskany, New York, the location of which will not be revealed here today. But it is a redundant location with 100% rollover capability that instantaneously rolls over in the event of a pandemic or a crisis or an emergency. So there's no interruption in the world's central bank to the world's central banks. Finally, life is a team sport, and our teamwork is critical. We have to learn how to behave better as team members. We have to think of each other as brothers and sisters. We need to find a way to love and respect one another. We're dealing with some fairly weighty issues on a global scale that I think could easily be managed if we have enough compassion to treat the people that we are exposed to in our lives as true brothers, sisters, and members of the family of humanity. Let's talk today about the key elements of automation, how I perceive them and how we bring them together. This is just a general overview, and then I'll go into the specifics of healthcare. We begin with RPA, the ability to create digital workers out of a computer to do highly repetitive tasks. At BNY Mellon, we installed a prototype of about 20 bots early on in the company's journey into robotics. And those bots were so successful to manage transactions that we expanded that community to about 250 bots. Those bots today are processing 99.6% of the bank's transactions, 160,000 transactions a day. It's a global bank, so we're operating 24/7, largely follow the sun, but we operate 24/7. Transacting $2 trillion every 24 hours in transactions. That's more than $20 million a second in 170 countries, in 140 languages, in 125 different currencies. Those bots are language agnostic and they're even orientation agnostic. So if the documents are presented in one orientation or another and the digitized content is reading right to left or left to right, it doesn't matter. The bots have become very smart. And most recently, we ran the coverage up to about 98% with that first population. And then we designed a set of bots that gap analyzed what wasn't being covered by the 98%. So what wasn't being done with the 2%, and then designed the next set of bots to provide coverage for that last 2% that wasn't being managed effectively by the first set of bots. Of course, we have machine language and the ability to use the computer to read and develop its own intelligence over a period of time. The machine is getting smarter every time it runs the process. It's getting smarter by the day. As we build out this capability, the machine vision adds inspection capability for high precision tasks. We want to do real-time dynamic behavioral modeling for our customers and clients. All of us want to be treated with respect. If we remember the previous page, all of us want to be treated with profound respect as customers. And when our call center calls our customers at 8 o'clock in the morning to sell them insurance. As an example, in Petah Tikva, Israel, the customer contact center for AIG reaches out to all of the Yiddish-speaking customers around the world and manages the global pipeline of Yiddish-speaking Hebrew customers. That customer base wants to be contacted optimally at a specific time of the day. If we call the same set of customers at 8 o'clock in the morning, the sell-through is about 14%. Call those same customers back at 2:30 in the afternoon, the sell-through is 91%. We have a 6-to-1 advantage by just reaching out to the customer when they want to be reached. In the same way, we analyze the behavior of the patients in the medical practice in every demographic and every medical practice to find the gaps when we expect people not to keep their appointments and overbook and overschedule the schedule in order to optimize the productivity for the physicians. Of course, business process management has been around for a long time, but if we add a layer of artificial intelligence, the business process management provides the capability of looking at every task in the patient care pipeline. In the case of healthcare, in the case of pharmaceuticals, the production of pharmaceuticals. Every task, whether it's being produced by a machine, a robot, or a human being, is mapped so we can see the end-to-end pipeline. And through the use of artificial intelligence, we're doing real-time demand and capacity modeling and planning for the staff, the automation, the maintenance schedules on the infrastructure and the equipment, the tooling, all of it. It's amazing technology. The language agnostic text analysis allows us to read medical records using RPA for things like tissue donation. When people, as their last greatest gift to humankind, donate their body to science for reuse, that tissue reuse has to be examined and scrutinized very carefully so that we don't transmit potential diseases or maladies that the donor had, perhaps that took the donor's life, and give them to someone else. So the RPA reads the medical histories and looks to be sure that we have complete information about every patient and every donor. Finally, this one is brand new. I'm announcing it here today. It's very powerful. I'm using it all over the world, and I want you to be aware. We're using radio frequency technology, a technology that was originally designed for RFID, finished goods location, where we put a tag on something and we look in a warehouse and it tells us that it's here. We're now using it to track active movement of goods, services, and patient care. So if we put an RFID bracelet on patients when they walk into the emergency room, we can provide proper patient spacing for COVID management. And we also know that the patient got lost on their way to the pharmacy or on the way to radiology because they didn't show up for their scheduled appointment. They're in the building somewhere. We can now track their whereabouts, send them an email message and tell them that they missed their appointment, but would they please move to the right department? Very powerful technology. I'll show it to you later. I'm going to try to show you a factory that's running in Dublin, Ireland on my cell phone. This is the presentation that we're going to be presenting at the World Health Organization Summit. It's a very powerful conversation about the use of AI, and I'm hoping that it develops and sparks some new ideas for all of you. We're calling it a guide to the medical office of the future. I provided a very similar overview at Davos 2020. One of the current realities that we're facing as a byproduct of the Affordable Care Act is that post the deployment of the Affordable Care Act, the life expectancy for every American for the first time in 50 years, the rate of growth of life expectancy has actually declined by about 2.1 years. This is a tragic outcome. The goal of the ACA was to provide health care to a broadened group of underserved patients within the United States. But if we look at that growth curve, those patients were in the CDC statistic every year since 1967. So however we served them, good or bad, they were in that population. But once we transfer the weighty burden of servicing uninsured patients, many of whom have pre-existing diseases of infliction, lung cancer from cigarette smoking, cirrhosis and cancer of the liver and pancreas from excessive alcohol consumption, drug abuse, unmanaged drug abuse. Those have a dramatic impact on the cost of healthcare for every American. And as a byproduct, for the first time in 50 years, life expectancy has actually declined because those people that are paying for the healthcare coverage can no longer afford to use it. They're showing up in their diseases with more latent outcomes as a byproduct of the growth of the disease and the fact that we didn't treat it soon enough. Because they can't afford to be seen, they show up late to the doctor, their diseases are more advanced, we can't treat them, and we're losing life as Americans. So we have to find a way of being more efficient. When we talk about intelligent healthcare, and intelligent automation, we want to use the tools and methods in a new way. We need to be innovative to respect the practice of medicine. And many of you may know that I managed emergency medicine at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. I attended and graduated from the U.S. Air Force's medical school. And as a medical professional, having provided direct hands-on healthcare, my specialties are surgical closure, cosmetic closure, fracture dislocation and reduction, the kinds of things you would expect in a trauma center. One of the things that I learned early in changing the healthcare in a medical practice is that when we try to transform an enterprise in the healthcare sector, we have to communicate in the language of the science. I saw the same thing at AIG when I transformed the law practice at AIG and delivered $2 billion in clawback by redesigning the way we practiced law. The same was true in medicine. When I spoke to 600 medical directors in a large conference room in Orlando, Florida, they stared at me and looked like as though I was speaking a foreign language. When I talked about key performance indicators and CTQs, they rolled their eyes and they were like, gosh, I don't get it. When I talked about vital signs, which is the measure of health that the doctor uses to determine how much healthcare we need to provide in an emergency, is this patient likely to survive? And I combined it with business expressions, the business vital signs, they all got it. They jumped on it, and suddenly they were enthusiastic about the idea that I was respecting their language, their profession, and speaking in their language. We want to apply the advanced client and behavioral analysis to determine when patients are likely to be seen and not, and also find out which physicians are the most capable at providing care in every practice, every specialty, and every procedure. So by baselining a national care of medicine in pediatrics, anesthesiology, radiology, and neonatology, we determine who is best at everything and then teach and transfer those best practices. It should not be a surprise to any of you that the most productive physicians in the practice that were seeing 42 patients a day had the best healthcare outcomes. So speed of delivery was not a factor in quality. By being extremely conscientious for everything that was done every day with every patient, those physicians were delivering a better care. So this is very important for us to consider going forward. Baseline your physicians and your healthcare professionals to determine who's best at everything that we do. Then we virtualize and co-locate operational teams to maximize our resilience. We talked about that earlier. Fortunately, we did this several years ago, so the practice is well prepared for the future and well prepared for the pandemic. Apply business process management as a mechanism to virtualize the healthcare and the practice all the way to the handheld device, which includes, by the way, vibrating the cell phone in the physician's pocket as a pacing device to tell the physician to move on to the next patient when the procedure should be complete. Use IBM Watson as a screening and sorting tool. Create a virtual practice of radiology where every image is first sent to IBM Watson. IBM Watson reads the image, looks for all possible anomalies, and then distributes the images to the very best physicians in practice anywhere in the country. This is really important for the future of healthcare because we have diseases like coronavirus, like diseases in Africa and South Africa, where we don't want to send the world's foremost authority and the one person in the world that may be capable of solving the crisis into the midst of the illness to try to treat those patients. If we can do the diagnoses remotely and treat those patients virtually, we improve everyone's survivability. And it's going to be important for the future of medicine. Telemedicine is on the horizon. It's a reality. We're using it today in order to respond to the COVID crisis. And then finally, we talked about having radiologists practicing medicine all over the country. All of you may be aware that doctors are licensed and credentialed to practice medicine in a local area. So if a doctor is practicing medicine in New York, unless they're licensed and credentialed in Chicago, Illinois, they can't treat patients in Illinois. They can only treat patients in New York. So we licensed and credentialed all of our physicians in all 50 states and Puerto Rico. Now, what does that mean? Every state is different. Their licensing and credentialing requirements are different. But by aggregating all of those demands into a common platform and a common form structure, using a combination of RPA and zero defect processing, we were able to take that licensing and credentialing time from 69 plus days on average for every single doctor in every single state to less than 9 days. This has a huge impact. It represents hundreds of millions of dollars in temporary physician compensation recovery by not having to hire temps to provide health care when physicians leave a local practice. We're able to cover the practice with other physicians and bring doctors online in less than 2 weeks. We talk about artificial intelligence being the hub of everything. This is a great example and it's a great visualization. I want you to see it and I want you to be aware of it. What this shows is that we are linking our RPA, which is reading medical records and making sure that we understand whether or not in a lengthy medical history of hundreds and thousands of pages, whether or not there are any expressions that represent concern for the physician. And we can also look at the medicine that has been prescribed for that patient and even the infusion chemistry that we used for chemotherapy and other things we can read remotely using RPA. We link that with machine vision to do things like inspection of the human skin, artificial intelligence, RF technology to provide location management of wherever the patient needs to be to provide the care and the health care. And in the case of pharmaceuticals, how we are making medical devices, how we are making human skin for human transplant. Every step of every touch point of every process is now being monitored using RF technology. This is powerful stuff. Speech synthesis, supplier capacity, the process and tech architectures. We talked about those before, the API and data architectures, user tiered access to all of that information, the infrastructure data about how to use the facility, what of the staff is available at what time and how they are trained and cross-trained, the equipment data for uptime and scheduled maintenance. How do we schedule the maintenance in such a way that it doesn't affect production? All of that goes into our artificial intelligence layer. This is a great example. We are making masks for COVID-19 protection for all of our people. And this gives us an opportunity to compare productivity of 61 different operators cutting fabric to make masks. And what we find is that they don't have similar productivity, even though they were trained at the same time, in the same class, using the same standards, they don't have the same results and outcomes. If we look at operator number one, at the low end, that individual is producing only about 770 square centimeters of usable fabric out of a large panel, where operator number 61 is consistently delivering almost 1,900 square centimeters. That's a 2.34 to 1 variance end to end. And by understanding that variance and mapping the difference and using machine vision to now do the inspection and the cutting patterning, we improved productivity 65%. 65%, it's huge. It means that we only need 534 pieces of fabric to produce over 1 million square centimeters of masks. Intelligent radio frequency technology. This is a new one for everyone and is very powerful technology. This gives us the opportunity to view the movement of every step of every process without having to have operators enter data into SAP or into our business management platform. The reason this is important is that in surgery, I don't want anyone touching anything. They're sterile, they're scrubbed. My physicians, my anesthesiologists, my nurses and surgical assistants are all scrubbed and gloved, and to have to hit a computer to enter data about patient outcomes and mid-procedure specifics is incapacitating for the process. It arrests the process. In the same way, when we're doing sterile procedures for making pharmaceuticals, we don't want people touching anything. And in some areas where we're mixing chemistries, the chemistry is so volatile and so hazardous that we can't have human beings in the same room where the chemistry is being mixed. But if we tag everything with these very small RFID tags, they're costing us on average of about 10 to 12 cents a piece. At the high end, if we want a very large area antenna that gives us maximum read range, they might be 18 cents a piece. They're made out of Teflon, they're sterile, they're washable, so we can put them on medical records that go right into surgery. We can put them on consumables that go into surgery. We can put them on the wristband for the patient so that we know which patient is in surgery, and we can properly do real-time billing and inventory replenishment based on the consumption of materials in surgery. This is a very powerful technology for the healthcare industry, and frankly will work equally effectively if we start tagging aircraft engine parts or things like military munitions. I don't want to be in the room where people are counting grenades, but if I put an RFID tag on them, I can send them through a pipeline, inventory them, and watch their movement and track everywhere they go, every time they move. Very powerful technology. It's brand new. Anyone that wants to know more about it, I'm happy to share it. This is an example of what the business process map looks like. These are all of the tasks for an end-to-end business process. And when we link the artificial intelligence business process management, this gives us the mechanism by which we can track the performance of the movement of all of the goods and services through our pipeline. It's very powerful technology. It tells us whether or not we are within standard for everything that we do. So it's extremely powerful, capable technology. It's running on my cell phone, by the way, because my camera is turned off in order for you to be able to see the detail in all of these charts. Because I have lots of detail in all of the content of the charts, I won't be able to show you, but trust me, I can run this factory on my cell phone and observe its behavior, the controls efficacy, the quality in real time of the production, and whether or not we're operating within standard for every single step of every single process, whether it's automated or not, if it's RPA, if it's machine vision, if it's a human operator, we can see in real time everything in the company. So while some companies are struggling to virtualize meetings just to get 6 people to talk together to have a meeting, we've already virtualized entire enterprises, not only to the desktop, to the handheld device. So while I'm standing buying groceries so that I can be living and working out of the home during the midst of this COVID crisis, I'm observing the behavior of the process and all of my production on my cell phone. And it rings in my pocket if we go out of standard, so I know to go look at the process and find out what is no longer within standard. This is the method that we apply. It's fairly detailed. There's a lot of content here, and I don't intend to go through it. It will be available on the website, and all of you can look at the website and rerun the video and stop on this page and take a look at it. But this is how we do integrated automation and process transformation. We no longer have time to run the double helix-like loop of process transformation, OpEx, and automation transformation. Digital transformation and process have to change at the same time. The old paradigm of the OpEx teams that came in and they fine-tuned a process and they made incremental improvements in an end-to-end pipeline, and then came back and redesigned the technology to fix the technology that they just broke when they optimized the operations, is a nightmare, because we never stop that dance of fixing the technology and fixing the process. Until we do them simultaneously, we don't get to the finish line at the same time. This is the method and the process that I apply to do them simultaneously, and I've been doing simultaneous process and technology transformation for the world's largest enterprises for the last 20 years, and I'm happy to share all of these methods. I have frameworks for every step in this process that I'm happy to share with all of you if it would be of interest. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge that over a period of time, I've been fortunate and blessed to be mentored, to have had the opportunity to work for some of the most amazing people in the world. I studied statistics under Dr. Deming, Edmund Fitzgerald, yes, the Edmund Fitzgerald of the shipping fame, the Edmund Fitzgerald that went to the bottom of Lake Superior. This is Edmund Fitzgerald, the son, who was the president of Northern Telecom. Jack Welch, Sandy Warner, who was the president of JP Morgan. Jamie Dimon, Ben Moshe, the president of AIG. These are brilliant and gifted people. Tony Curtis, who has become a best friend, who's president of CPC. These are brilliant and capable people, and I have been the recipient of the best of their leadership and mentorship. So I want to thank all of my mentors and all of the amazing people that have been in my life and provided such tremendous support to me over my lifetime in order to bring me to this level of skill and capability. It didn't come, I didn't get it all at the University of Michigan, although I studied well there. I didn't get it at the University of the Air Force Medical School, although I studied there as well. It really came more from the hands-on work that I did within the industry and the mentorship that I received from these amazing people. So let me see, I think I've got my camera running. So if you can see the camera, I'm going to try to turn on, there are multiple levels of authentication, so it's going to take me a second to turn on my factory. This is a factory running in Dublin, Ireland, that's running with this automation. I hope that all of you can see this factory running. Those are process steps and tasks running through this production pipeline, and I'm observing it from Albany, New York. And wherever you are, our guest in Johannesburg is now aware that one of my processes has gone out of control, has turned red because it's no longer within standard, and has gone out of control in Ireland. So we've got people online today that are working with us in this event, that are participants.
Hey, Don, this is Jose here. There is a problem, I think, with your camera, and it's not streaming. So if you want to describe or talk about it, that's okay. But
Sure.
your camera is not showing through. It may be a bandwidth issue at that point. So if you can just describe or talk about something else, that would be ideal.
Sure, let me see if I can stop sharing my screen, if that helps.
Yeah, I can see you now. It's a little bit fuzzy, but I can see you now.
Okay, let's see if, can you see it now?
It's a little bit fuzzy, but yes, we can see it. So go ahead and describe what you're showing to us.
So what we have is a business process map. This is an artificial intelligence layer, a business process map that's running in the background. that shows us production on a global scale and allows us to observe the productivity of every operator and every machine and every task and every step on a global basis. So we have virtualized the management of the business all the way to the handheld device. I'm hoping that was interesting and instructive. Are there any questions? I know this is a little bit like drinking from a fire hose because I've introduced a brand new technology with RF, AI, RF technology as a hands-off business process management tool. And I've integrated a number of tools that heretofore were not used together in order to optimize the practice of medicine. Are there any questions? And Jose, do you have any questions from the audience that people might be interested in?
We do, Don, we do. So lots of very interesting questions. And as Don and I continue the discussion here, please keep providing your questions and I'll relay them to Don. Let me pick one here from the audience just to get us started.
Sure.
Right from the beginning here, there's some questions about you sharing some of your materials, and yeah, I think you already talked about that you're going to be sharing some of these materials.
You can have all of it.
And the very first question that came up was from Rolando Bautista, and he asked, what is the right and best criteria to identify the processes to be done by RPA, the processes that you may be focusing your RPA on? What are your thoughts on that?
Really great question. RPA operates best where we have high repeatability, where the computer can do the same task over and over and over again. And they're the kinds of tasks that human operators, our employees, don't mind giving up. They're the things that people complain about and say, boy, you know, all I do all day long is fill out the same form and I do it 1,000 times a day. They're highly redundant tasks that the computer can produce with much higher accuracies than the human beings, essentially 100% accuracy. So there tend to be highly redundant tasks, highly repetitive tasks, and tasks that are not well liked by the employees. We streamline them and the bots actually work much more efficiently. They get smarter by the day. They don't ask for breaks. They don't smoke cigarettes. They don't walk away for lunch. And they don't ask to go back on sabbatical, to go back to school to learn more. They're actually learning every time they execute the process. Great question.
Very good, very good. There are a lot of different questions about the stages of maturity of RPA, of intelligent automation. Tell us a little bit. You have such a diverse background. You have gone cross-industry with these implementations. What is your assessment of the level of maturity of these technologies today across industries that you work with? How would you rank or rate the level of maturity that we have on those applications today?
The level of maturity, great question. The level of maturity of the RPA depends really on the practitioner. For those of us that have done this, now I'm in my 10th or 12th implementation. This becomes much more routine, and it's easier and faster to do the deployment with speed and precision. Some of it depends on the maturity, the cultural maturity of the company and the industry that we serve. So if we're serving an industry that as a legacy is very conservative, is not very, does not welcome risk, is risk averse, and certainly healthcare, finance, financial services, banking, investment services are that way. They tend to be risk averse. The deployment of the technology tends not to be quite so aggressive. One can imagine in the case of BNY Mellon, central bank to the world's central banks, looking at that transaction volume, $20 million a second. Human beings can't read that fast. There's no way the human beings could keep up with that transaction volume. So by automating these tasks, we're actually delivering a highly valued service to the community. And it depends more on the maturity of the company that we serve and the cultural maturity and their readiness for change than the maturity of the technology. The maturity of the technology today is reading X-ray images at IBM Watson and parsing out the images to the very best physician in country based on quality of care and results. So the technology is very mature and it's getting smarter by the day. So if we send an image of an older woman that falls off of a bicycle or falls down the stairs and she fractures the distal aspect of the right clavicle right near the AC joint up here, has a fracture, a degenerative fracture, IBM Watson not only sees that fracture and sends it to the best physician who's in Spokane, Washington, but it noticed that she had an enlarged thyroid that no one had been looking for. And she was asymptomatic for, and sent that image to the best physician who's in San Antonio, Texas. And we get both reads back in 35 seconds. So before the patient gets up from the table, we have diagnoses from the two finest physicians in the country in terms of medical results on those maladies and those issues. So the technology is very capable. We just have to marry it up with the culture and the company that's ready to receive it. Great question. Are there others? Jose, are there other questions?
Yeah, I apologize. I had my microphone turned off.
Oh, no problem.
You have Don. Thank you for sharing all your wisdom and knowledge with us today. But I want to ask a question related to leadership. You have had an incredible career across so many different industries, and you have worked with some amazing global leaders, including Dr. Deming, Dr. Michael Harry, Jack Welch, James Diamond, John Swainson, Bob Bensmosh, and a long list of amazing leaders that you had access to. Who out of these leaders did you learn the most from, and why?
Well, that's a powerful question, because every one of these people have been so gifted and so free with their kindness and support and mentorship of me that it's very, very difficult for me to find, if you will, a favorite or someone that was perhaps more influential than others. But if I look back on my life's experience and what gave me grounding to be able to sit with Mr. Welch, who had a very short fuse and was very demanding and wanted an answer. If you couldn't give an answer in the first 15 seconds, you would run out of time. Jamie Dimon, perhaps the most brilliant mind in all of banking. Doug Shulman, hands down, best regulatory, best compliance, best customer experience officer in the world. These are brilliant, brilliant minds. Probably be my father, and probably because from the time that I sat on my father's knee until the time that we said goodbye, I learned so much about my life's journey and life's experience. My father would tell me that he remembered that Henry Ford said that if you think you can or that you can't, you're always right. And I never forgot it. I never forgot it. And I've had people ask me and say, Don, people spend a lifetime getting enough skill and enough experience to provide leadership in banking alone, just to manage regulatory issues in banking, that to become a subject matter expert to design banking systems and the architecture for the bank ought to be a lifetime achievement. And that alone would be a standalone achievement, working for Jack Welch across all of his businesses and managing that pipeline of transformation initiatives. AIG, the world's biggest insurance companies, Bob Bensmosh, brilliant, gifted man. But I think it's probably my dad, because he gave me such good grounding. And if I reflect on my life experience, it's probably that I believed in every moment that no matter who I was sitting with and no matter how difficult the training and mentorship, I always believed that I could. And I would trust all of you to take that away, use it as a takeaway for today's events. Understand that you can and you will transform your companies, your lives, and this world that we live in. A little bit of love will go a very long way. Thank you so much. Great question.
Don, I'll have one final quick question and answer here, is that in the next 10 years, we're probably going to experience more technological change in our life and our work that we have experienced in our last 50 years combined.
Absolutely.
What practical advice, if you can give us a short practical advice for all the participants in the conference, that for them, technologists who are with us and business leaders who are with us, what is your best advice for them in implementing these changes in organizations effectively going forward?
Great question. Because of the rate of change, which has been tremendous, and certainly responding to the COVID-19, post-COVID-19 environment, we're going to be transforming every company in the world. And I am speaking at the United Nations on September the 14th. So this is a topic that is getting everyone's attention. How do we transform the world? How do we transform nations? How do we transform our companies and our institutions and our government institutions? Every morning when I wake up, I pray that God will transform me, that I can be the person that can help to change the world, and that through my willingness to change myself, to be flexible for change, and to be the instrument of change, that I can deliver that transformation every day for every person that is involved in my life. And I will share anything with all of you that I have ever learned. So if any of you want support, background, interest, additional content, frameworks, tools, I have over 200 analytical tools in the box. Just please reach out to me on LinkedIn or through the internet. I'm happy to help you in any way that I can.
Donald, real privilege and honor, personal honor for me to have you here and continue to learn so much from you. Thank you very much. And on behalf of everybody who's attending this, congratulations on all that you have done and continue to do for all of us. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Thank you so much, Jose. Thank you, the audience. Thank all of you for your kind questions and attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be ending the session now. And the next session will start at the top of the hour. Please go back to any of your reminder emails received directly from customer care at gotowebinar.com for this conference and click the join webinar link to rejoin the next session. We look forward to seeing you. We'll relaunch the next session 5 minutes before the hour. Finally, your feedback is very important to us. When I close the session, there will be a short survey that will pop up. And if you couldn't take a minute or two to just fill out the survey, provide any feedback, we really appreciate that. Thank you everybody for joining us on the first session and hope to see you soon in our second session.